Record is on.
Welcome to the Young Pros Show. Super excited for another episode to bring you guys some value and another special guest here at the Young Pro Show. We like to bring you entrepreneurs, leaders, and people that are stepping out from the status quo to live the life that they desire. So today on the show, we have Josh Wyles. Josh is a father of two daughters. He's a marketer, and he likes to call himself a friendsman. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Josh, why don't we start off? First of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm pumped.
Cool, man. Well, why don't we just start off by telling the viewers a little bit about yourself, your story, and what got you into entrepreneurship, man?
Okay, yeah, for sure. Well, I'm 30 years old. I do have two beautiful daughters, single dad now, two girls. Peyton's 8 and Lexi is 7, and definitely got started young. When I was 21 years old, I became a police officer. I live in North Carolina down here in the southern part of the United States, and police officers don't make a lot of money. I was making $30,000 a year to strap on a bulletproof vest and to wear a gun on my hip, go out there and protect the streets, you know, protect and serve. And I was working overtime after overtime after overtime. It was like, you know, they say there's always, you know, say when you're living like that, there's more month left at the end of the money. I wasn't even living paycheck to paycheck. I was living like paycheck to the Wednesday before my next paycheck and looking for stuff to sell on Craigslist or, you know, take to the pawn shop just to even make ends meet. It was not a good place. To supplement my income, I started doing some martial arts, and I was a kickboxer, and I had some amateur and professional fights. I fought up in New York City back in September of 2011, and I met some guys from Ontario, Canada, and we made friends after the fight. And a couple months later, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was December 5th, 2011. My buddy Jordan calls me up, and he's like, "Hey, man, I found a way to make some extra money." He's like, "I know you're not making any money fighting because I ain't either, and police work probably don't pay a lot. I found a way to make some extra money." And he said, "You got to meet this guy. His name's Matt Britt, and he said he's making like 60 grand a month, and at the time I'm making 30 grand a year." I was like, man, there's a guy making more money in a month, twice as much in a month than I make in a year. I got to meet this guy. And that was when I was introduced to marketing, entrepreneurship, personal development, and it's changed my life. It really has.
Incredible, man. It's so cool how without even expecting it, sometimes things could just kind of fall into our life and lead us into a complete different direction than we would have expected. Were you interested in entrepreneurship while you were a police officer, while you were in martial arts, or was it just kind of something that fell on your lap?
I mean, it fell in my lap, honestly. I didn't even have an idea that network marketing, relationship marketing, online marketing, I had no idea that even existed. You know, I'd heard of companies before, but I never really put two and two together. You know, to supplement my income, obviously doing the kickboxing thing, I was working at a gym a little bit. I was doing some personal training. So I guess you could say that I had a little entrepreneur bug in me, but I didn't know how to make it flourish. You know, maybe the seeds were in there, but I didn't have any guidance, didn't have any mentorship, didn't know how to make it flourish. I mean, until I met Matt and these guys and got into this profession.
One of the things you always had was an open mind, though, obviously, because, you know, the second that you and I talked, you were very open to hearing about, you know, some of the stuff that we were doing, but also you were very diligent on going to get your own information. I remember you and I talked probably 4 or 5 times before you really jumped on it, right?
Yeah.
So you had the open mind, you had the willingness to learn, and I think that's probably one of the best things about you know, a guy like yourself and like myself, David, us entrepreneurs. We're more open to getting that education before we make a decision instead of just listening to hearsay from a friend. You know, we decide that we're going to take our own due diligence, but trust ourselves and our own instincts and our own beliefs in us to make the best educated decisions for us, right?
Right, yeah, 100%. I think it definitely has to do with having an open mind. You know, there's a lot of people out there that, you know, if I tell people all the time, if you're broke or if you're having relationship issues or you're having, you know, social issues or emotional issues, it's not so much that there's something wrong with you. It's just that maybe there's some philosophy challenges. Maybe you just need to change your philosophies. In order to do that, you got to have an open mind.
Yeah. Yeah, the life philosophy is, you obviously love Jim Rohn like me, and he's definitely the best when he talks about the philosophies of life and how to really put things in a different perspective for us and allow us to really go out and explore things that we often haven't thought are there.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of Jim Rohn, I remember in our kit when I signed up with you guys that first time, we got the Jim Rohn, the Brown Building Your Business CD. Yeah. And I remember you said, put that in your car, turn it into Drive Time University, and you said, don't listen to anything else. Because at the time, I think my goal was to just make an extra $1,000 a month. I didn't know how big it could get. And you said, until you make that $1,000 a month, put this CD in there and listen to it every single day on repeat. Don't change it. Don't switch it out. Don't go back to listening to Justin Bieber or some silly joke you made about me. But that CD was that was the intro to really get me down this road and turn me on to personal development and help me change my philosophies.
Nice. What do you think today, from your experience in personal development now, and you've been, kind of done this entrepreneurial path for about 5 or 6 years, that's right?
Yeah, 5 years. It'll be this December. It'll be 5 years. Yeah.
5 years this December. So is there any one, kind of pivotal moment or book or, audio program or some speaker that's really kind of shifted everything for you?
Yeah. It obviously started with Jim Rohn and that CD. And then that was more geared toward your mindset and your philosophies, specifically in building network marketing. I read a book. I think I got one of the little Success Pro magazines that we used to get every month, and you were featured on it, like an ambassador profile or something like that. And you were talking about a book that you read by Robin Sharma, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. It was the first book I ever read on personal development. And that book really opened my mind and was like, okay, it's not just about the planting your seeds and following up and going to the events. And it really is about becoming a different person, really expanding your wings and changing your philosophies, changing what's on the inside. And that book took me down the road of kind of inner philosophy, and Zen and the Art of Happiness by Chris Prentice, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. These are some that really changed everything for me. And through that journey, I ran into, I met an audio series. I met a guy, he's probably dead now. His name's William E. Bailey, Bill Bailey. And he mentored Jim Rohn and mentored Les Brown and some of the greats. And I got a audio series by him called The Lost Tapes of a Legend. And it talks about the 4 cornerstones of character and really how to change your philosophy and your environment and ethics and values. And I listened to that thing. I mean, it's like 60 hours plus on this 12-disc set, but I listened to that thing religiously for like 2 years after I got it. And that was when I started to actually see some things in my business change for the better.
Wow.
That's amazing, man. It's so cool how, and a lot of people don't do this. A lot of people aren't willing to change themselves before they actually get, a lot of people want the result, but they're not willing to change themselves to get the result.
Right. Yeah.
But then you have people that are, like you, that are super, super open-minded, that are willing to put in 60 hours listening to someone that has the result that you want, when other people would look at you and say, man, you're crazy. Why are you listening to this guy for 60 freaking hours to get the result that you want? What do you think was the biggest game changer for you? And when you were listening to these audios, do you think that it was just over time you started to change and then your results started to change, or was there any trigger?
No, I like what some of the great mentors say, about change. It doesn't take a long time to change. If you really look at it, I mean, here's what it takes a long time to do: to come to the decision to change. Sometimes that takes a long time. The decision-making process, like Matt and I talked a moment ago about, we talked 4 or 5 times over that 48-hour period before I made the decision to get started and jump in. It's the process of making the decision to change, I think, that some people kind of misinterpret. That's a process, and that can sometimes take days, weeks, months, years, however long it takes. But the act of changing, that point where you actually change, to me, that happens in an instant. And when I got a hold of this information, I'd already kind of gone through the decision-making process to change. And that's why I was digging into the information. That's why I was reading the books and going to the seminars and listening to the audios and the tapes. I was in that decision process, but once I found the information, once I knew and it was in me, that decision to change happened in an instant. And when the change happened in an instant, everything in my life changed. I mean, my business went from, adding just a few new people a week to, growing it into over 40,000 people in 7 countries in less than a year and a half. And so I don't think it's the change that takes the time. The change isn't the process. It's the decision making. That's the process, is making that decision actually change. And then having the awareness, having the information to know how to effectively make that change and then go put that into practice.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about taking the time to make the decision in the first place, but the change just happens in an instant. We get so many people are stuck in a place for so long, and they know it. They know they're not happy. They're struggling. They're living paycheck to paycheck or less than paycheck to paycheck, but they wallow in that shit for as long as it takes, really, for them to make that decision to make the change. And the second that they do, now everything can be different for them.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the key. Yeah, it is. It is. I think change, and that's a good word. I don't even know how we got on this topic, but it's a good word. It's a good topic. I think that obviously change is inevitable. That's very cliche to say, but it really is. I mean, if you look at Matt, just the last 5 years of your life, the last 2 years of your life, the last year of your life, give me a 90-day period that you didn't experience some type of significant change. If you look at people as a whole, there's people out there that can't go more than 10 minutes without experiencing some type of change, whether it's emotional or internal or reactionary to something that's going on in the outside world. Change is inevitable, and I think that's what makes people afraid, is because with change, there comes along with it a little uncertainty. Yes. And I think that we as human beings, obviously we need uncertainty or else life would be boring, but I think the only uncertainty that we really get off on anymore is, what's for dinner, or how's this next movie going to be? Or, I can't wait to see the new episode of the TV show because I'm uncertain about how it's going to end. And that suspense gives me a rise inside. But you got to fall in love with the uncertainty. You got to fall in love with the change, because it's the one thing that we can guarantee, is change. And if we understand that change is inevitable, then I believe that, we can be better suited to pick the changes that we want.
Yeah.
And that's what changed my life for sure.
Yeah. We can change.
Yeah.
And you're so right. And it seems like the people, I love what you said, that one, change is inevitable, and two, that we just gotta be willing to jump into the uncertainty and allow the change to happen. And it seems like the only time that we'll ever be upset with ourselves, or we won't be happy with the current situation, is if we're not willing to, or if we're afraid of that uncertainty and not willing to jump into the change that's always going to happen everywhere, because it's always moving. We're always going through this ebb and flow of life, and if we can flow with it and then are willing to kind of take the steps to move with it, then we're going to be able to experience the kind of life that we want to live. But so many of us are just like trapped behind this idea that we want to stay in this comfortable environment, but it's that wanting to stay in that comfortable environment that's not allowing anything else to change, and it's not willing to jump into that uncertainty, that's not allowing the certainty of your own dreams to unfold in your own life.
That's it.
If we know change is always going to happen, and we understand that most go through change on autopilot, right? Change happens to them. Whereas people like us, we make change happen for us.
That's the key. That's the key. And it's not even so, and I love what you said, David. I think that people are just kind of stuck in that rut, and they're trapped in that uncertainty. But we could be certain about change. So you got to go with the ebb and flow in life. And I think it's because we as humans also kind of want to always be in control. We want to feel like we're always in control. I look at just throughout history, and I remember back, growing up, my pawpaw used to tell, I was raised by my grandparents, and my pawpaw, he remembers growing up in the town where they had a blacksmith and they had a horse farrier, and you had to be marketable. You had to be self-marketable every single day. And then, the industrial age happens, and people are now in these controlled environments where we're pulling one lever 1,000 times a day, and we're getting paid this wage, and we come to work this time. And I think that we've been geared, we've been not necessarily brainwashed, that sounds negative, but conditioned. We've been conditioned, programmed, if you will, that's acceptable. But it's not. It really isn't. I mean, and we have to learn to, I think, to really have a life that thrives and really be able to experience the beauty and the joy that we have in this world. Now, I know there's some fucked up stuff going on in the world, but we live in the most beautiful, incredible time that I think anybody in the history of the universe has ever lived. And in order to really be able to experience the beauty and flourish and thrive in life with happiness, you have to learn to let go of that control, and you have to learn to accept what is. I think when you accept what is, you're better suited to make those changes happen for you as opposed to letting them happen to you.
So, yeah, it's interesting, man. It's when you let go of control is when you actually begin to get the control, right?
Yes.
So caught up with controlling the environment. If we just let go, we would get the things that we want to have control over anyway.
That's it. And it really takes a lot of fear out. And one of my mentors told me to spin off that. He said, Josh, you know, the greatest power in the world really comes when you exercise none. The greatest power, the greatest control really comes in the exercising of no control and the exercising of not trying to have the power. That's when you really have the power.
And it's even more than that. I think it's almost deeper than that. It's understanding the only thing you truly ever have control over 100% of the time is your own brain.
That's it.
Right? So if you give up control of the external and take over control of you and your thoughts and your actions, now you have the power.
That's it.
Right?
That's it.
And Matt, you said something to me one time. A lot of us are focused on our external environment, and we let those dictate the way that we feel, the way that we act, the way that we think. But in the end, what the fuck does it really matter? Right? What do those external things really, really matter when the only thing that we could ever control is what's in here, right? It doesn't.
That's it. And it's like, you know, I read a book, Zen and the Art of Happiness. I know I keep going back to some of the stuff I've had
who's it by that? Because I'm gonna go buy that book.
Chris Prentice. Yeah. Amazing book. It's a short read. But it talks about exactly what you're saying. The only thing you control is what's in here. So when you let go of trying to control the external, you can have more use and more control over this, which really ultimately determines our life. But there's an analogy he uses in the book I think is absolutely perfect, and I love the way he says it. You know, imagine two scenarios. The first scenario, you're woken up in the morning at 5 a.m. before you're supposed to get out of bed, and you're waking up to the absolute ear-piercing, loudest sound of construction work going on the lot next door to your house. And you go outside and you talk to the construction worker and nobody's giving you answers. You don't know how long this is going to be going on for, and you're just miserable. And now you react in a negative way and you have a terrible day and you're grouchy to your boss and you're grouchy to your employees or your coworkers or whatnot. You come home, the construction's still going, and it goes on like this for weeks and months, and then you're miserable. So imagine a different scenario. It has it, and the only difference is what goes on in here. What if when you went out there and talked to the construction worker, the construction worker says, "Oh my goodness, you had a very rich and wealthy relative that has just died. We're building this house for you, and it's going to be the most glorious mansion, and you'll never have to pay a mortgage." You would wake up, man. I would be dancing to that construction all day long if that happened to me. But it wasn't the external that changed. It was your perception. It was how you understood. It was how you processed it, and your belief about what was going on. And that changes your whole world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it absolutely does. Your perception of the events that take place around you will dictate how you respond and whether it's good or bad. And you can change that perception with just a reframe. Yeah. Right?
You can. And it happens instantly. Change will happen in an instant when you make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a quick change of subject. But Josh, for the viewers, why are you drinking out of a measuring cup?
Oh, well, it helps me. It helps me keep track of the exact amount of glasses of water I drink a day. So I got my little jug here, and I just, sometimes I'm on the phone or my hands are full, so it's just easier for me to maneuver the little measuring cup. I got 1 million of these bad boys.
Cool. There you have it. Stay healthy. Drink water.
Stay
healthy. Drink water. Yeah.
Use the measuring cup.
Awesome. Josh, we introduced you as a friendsman. Why? I never heard that before. I never heard anyone call themselves a friendsman. What does that mean to you?
I love making friends. You know, that's what I do. I make friends. I like to add value to people. I find that the more I give, the more I receive. That I really don't believe that there will ever be a point to where a human being could ever give too much of anything. And I think that, you know, in the society we live in today, there's so many people that are, you know, they're glued to their cell phone, or they're glued to their computer, or they're glued and they're stuck in this closed world, when we really live in a huge, massive, open world where, just like this, you guys are in Canada and I'm down in North Carolina, but we're connected like we're sitting in front of each other. I think that connectivity I think that connectivity really does breed a desire to be more connected, if people are aware that there's good people out there that want to be connected. And so that's my personal philosophy when it comes to dealing with people. It's like, just go be their friend. You know, the real equity in life, I really truly believe, is the social equity that we build with other human beings. Because if you're looking at money, if you're looking at income, where does money come from? Money comes from one place and one place only: other people. And people are only ever going to spend money on one thing and one thing only: what they value. You know, I value drinking out of a measure cup. That's why I got 1 million of them, right? Others are going to drink out of a beer stein or whatever. You know, it's what we value is what we're going to spend money on. And I think that ultimately it's just the value you have, the value you put into yourself, that you can then give out to other people. It's going to draw more value to you. It's a beautiful cycle, but it starts with just being someone's friend. And that's why I like to consider myself a friendsman. I don't consider myself a network marketer, you know, and I used to love the term and love feeling like a professional network marketer now and full-time and a businessman, but it's not me. I just want to be a friendsman. I want to go make friends.
Friendsman. And I used to always talk about that in the industry: is make friends, show your friends your business, say your friend, whether they join you or not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's powerful, man, that you're talking about wanting to give to those around you, and that's when you'll truly be happy. I read a quote that said that to be selfish, you really just got to be selfless. And when you're selfless, then you're going to be able to get all those things that you want anyway. I remember the book, I'm sure you read it, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's one of the books that's transformed my life forever. And one of the philosophies that they talk about is focusing on giving to the other person and focusing on what the other person cares about when you're talking about them, right? Focusing on them instead of focusing on us. And so many of us are caught up, even in our day-to-day conversations, with I. This is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want. But when you begin to get selfless and focusing on what they want, one, you'll make a bunch of new friends, and you're going to get more in return from just doing that.
That's it. You know, go ahead. Sorry, Matt.
It's also important to understand that we get something out of being selfless. So if you really understand it, we're always just selfish.
That's it.
And that's okay. It's the perception that we put on it, right? If a selfish person can be selfish in two ways. They can be selfish from a negative standpoint and want everything from other people, but they can also be selfish from a giving standpoint and be extremely selfish in giving to other people, but everything they give away gives them something back, which is the selfish part.
That's it.
Right?
I think that's an amazing philosophy. I don't think I've ever actually heard it put that way. But you know, I think if we go out there and we try to make it to where nobody can outgive us, you know, here's what I know: nobody will outfriend me. You know, nobody will outfriend me. And I think if we could have that philosophy of nobody going to outfriend us, nobody's going to outgive us, instead of it always being nobody's going to outdo me, it's not so much about that. It's what are you giving? Who are you on the inside? You know, it's like it's not so much do, have, than be. It's be, do, have.
Yeah.
Be, do, have. I like that.
Yeah.
Be, do, have. Most of us are starting with do. Actually, we're starting with what we want to have. And then we completely forget about be.
Yeah. Or we think that what we do is going to give us what we want, and then we'll have, and then that's going to make us who we are. That's what's going to really define the be part of it. But the truth is, results come from, you know, because I remember, Matt, you and I used to have this conversation all the time, especially in network marketing business, and you're trying to get duplication, and duplication is the key. And why is it that I can do ABC Matt could do ABC and Dave could do ABC, and we could all three get different results doing the same thing, following the same system. It's about who we are. Our results are going to be determined, honestly, at the end of the day, our results are going to be because of who we are as people. And that's what we got to focus on.
Yeah. And that goes back to the investing in yourself on a day-to-day basis, right? Putting books in, putting audio programs in, surrounding yourself with better people, being a better friend, being a better in the relationships that you're in, caring for that stuff, and changing yourself on a day-to-day level on purpose.
That's it, on purpose.
How you think on purpose, right? Embracing the change that you create for yourself as opposed to being out there and just letting bullshit change happen to you and making a daily practice of it.
Yeah. Living intentionally. Yeah. Living intentionally.
Yeah,
that's
living
a good
intentionally. Yeah.
Feel that.
What do you want to talk about now, Josh?
I'm digging this. What do you guys want to talk about?
Here's a good topic. What about, we're talking a lot about what we got to do and how we know that we have to change ourselves if we want to change our life. What about when we're really just in a lot of shit, right? What about when we have our whole life has led up to us being in a state where there's a lot of shit around us? How do we begin to start to change ourselves when there's these things that are flying at us from every direction around us?
I can tell you I've been there. That's for sure. I think the first thing is the environment, is our environment, and not so, because now some people, I've been there. Some people are in a situation to where they don't have the ability to change their environment on the outside. They don't have the ability to change their outer environment. They're not going to be able to go and fire their coworkers and quit that job right now that's sowing the negative seeds and beating them down. But I think the first step to that change and getting out of the shit or getting out of the mire or whatever you want to call it is it goes back to exactly what we've been talking about this whole time, is changing our internal environment, taking control over this, understanding that, yes, we in the shit right now. But let's look back. And really, and I like to do this. I like to do a lot of, looking back and kind of not so much living in the past, but remembering, especially when things aren't going exactly the way I wanted them, when I'm being selfish in a negative way because I don't have the control over something that I expected, when my expectations weren't met, and I'll create this negative environment in my brain because of that. I'll look back and remember a time where I was there before in a similar situation, and I will watch myself come out of that. And I'll watch myself rise above it. And like you talked about the ebb and flow of life, we always talk about getting to the mountaintop. Well, guess what? There's no smooth mountaintop, right? So the first step is really understanding that where you are is not where you're always going to be. You're going to come through it. It's going to change. It has to. It's the cycle of life. Accept it or change it. And if, a lot of times the first step to change, the only way that we can change it is to start changing our internal environment. Put some positive shit in our brain, man.
And we say that, sometimes people are in a very stuck situation. They don't have the money necessarily to change their environment. But you know what? It's as simple as buying 10 sheets of paper and getting a pencil and writing some good positive words on those pieces of paper and sticking them up on your wall.
Yes, it is. I'll tell you a story. Matt, I remember like it was yesterday, the day that I resigned from police work. I was making, enough money in Visalis the previous months to say, man, I can do this full time. This is it. And this job's holding me back. And all those things that we say when we're trying to go full time. And when I resigned, I remember I was texting you and I called you. I was in tears. I was crying and I was scared to death, nervous. And I remember almost being a little pissed at you because I thought you were going to give me some Yoda wisdom, philosophical thing that was going to shift my paradigm again and change my whole world. And I remember texting you, what do I do? What do I got to do? Talk to me, help. And you said 3 words, think incredible thoughts. That's all you said to me. You said, think incredible thoughts. And I'm like, I remember Googling, is this a book? Is this a book I need to pick up? Is this an audio? I'm on YouTube. Think incredible. What the hell is he trying to tell me? And I remember we had a conversation shortly after that. And you literally meant just, hey, just think incredible thoughts.
Yeah, man.
It really is that simple because it'll change your state, you know? It'll change your state. I woke up really early and didn't sleep that well last night. So I still feel kind of groggy. I'm drinking water. I find that drinking water helps wake me up more than about anything else. And, you know, yeah, Matt, when we first got on, you're like, you know, you didn't necessarily say, hey, you look like shit, bro. But you're like, hey, you know, I can tell you're aging a little bit, aging gracefully, you're aging. But this alone, this interaction that we're having, this fellowship, this conversation, it has changed my state.
Yeah.
And it's like I feel like I'm glowing now, you know. It's like if my smile gets any bigger, I'm gonna eat 2 bananas sideways, you know. But that's the truth, and I mean that's the way life works. We're all wired that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I remember when I kind of started this whole personal development journey. I was a little impulsive when I wanted to kind of change my environment. I remember that I was living in my place. I moved around to my parents' place at like 17. All my friends around me, they were just drinking and partying and doing all that fun stuff. And I remember in my room, I had like this quote on the wall that said, from Steve Jobs, "The ones who are crazy enough to change the world are the ones who actually do." And I would just look at that quote every single day, and I remember putting it up there. And even when there was like parties going on, I threw a lot of them. Even though there was parties going on in my house, I'd go to my room and I'd see this quote and I'd remember why I was really there. And the impulsive thing came from when I actually joined network marketing the first time, and I just completely quit my job, and I left all of my friends there to move on to Ottawa on this guy's floor. And I was just living on this guy's floor, eating ramen noodles for breakfast, lunch, and supper, and literally had no money for anything. And I just left my friends behind. And I don't know, you know, you can't expect everyone to do something like that, but that was a huge game changer for me, even though it sucked. Even though that, you know, I love my friends and I loved how they were to me, the truth is that quote was meaning more to me than my current situation that I was in. And I was willing to kind of jump and make that change, even if it meant living on a guy's floor. And this was pretty good. So there's one bedroom that we were living in, and it wasn't there was 2 bathrooms shared by the entire apartment building.
Yeah.
So we'd have to go downstairs to shower and like take turns from the other people that were in the apartment building. And I was like living on this little mattress right beside their bed, just eating ramen noodles. But the truth is I was starting to change my state, and I was starting to change my environment, and that was really what allowed everything else to ripple. So 100% worth it. Sucked in the moment though.
Been there, done that.
You know, I just wanted to go back to the mental game and that side of it. You know, I'm sure every one of us has heard it millions of times, and I'm sure most people who are stuck in a bad place have heard it too, about, you know, controlling what you think. But I don't really think that people truly understand what that means. Like, our brain is moving 24/7 all the time. When we're awake, it is running, and we are constantly in self-talk, constantly. And paying attention to that is really a key foundation in understanding what it is that's being running through your head every single day, and intentionally adding new thoughts that you say and repeat them over and over and over again if you need to, but being aware and then catching yourself when negative things come up. Right?
That's the key. Yeah.
It's paying attention to what's being said, and becoming more aware and doing it as often as you can, and then intentionally making different thoughts your priority when you catch a negative one being there, right? Because it's so easy, because we run an auto program. It's so easy to have those negative thoughts spin out of control day in, day out, and think the same shit every day for the rest of your life. That's so easy to do. It's difficult to be aware of what it is that you're thinking and to pay attention to it and to intentionally make a choice to think different things. And at first it'll be hard, right? That awareness and that trying to think of different thoughts will be a challenge for everybody. However, the daily practice of it, just being aware, first of all, and then starting to make that conscious effort to say different things in your own self-talk, will start to compound and compound and compound. And over, you know, years of practice, you can go through your days without ever thinking a negative thought, without ever being around a negative person, without ever experiencing confrontation from a negative standpoint or any of that stuff that we dislike, because our total programming system has now taken a full overhaul.
That's it. And, you know, I read a book. It's by a guy named Shad Helmstetler, and it's called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. And in this book, you know, he literally...
People would think you're crazy, by the way, if they walked and saw you reading that book.
Yeah, I'm sure. But the truth of the matter is, and you know, don't quote me on this, on the statistic, you know, our minds are, like you said, Matt, they're constantly going. We're thinking like, we think at like the pace of like 380 or 400 words, you know, per minute, per second or something like that. But we only speak, you know, I don't know, 30, 40 words a minute or whatever. So the rest of those words that don't actually come out of our mouth, they're in our brains. We're thinking them. We're thinking these thoughts all the time. Like you said, it's like auto-suggestion, and we have to shift that thinking. And it can be just as simple as like what I did when I transitioned from my first company to the other one. I really had to make things happen. I really needed to make it work. I couldn't go back and be a police officer again. So I had to really do some changes and some personal things inside of me and my mindset. And it was as simple as typing a little note on my iPhone of my goal. I typed on the notepad on my iPhone the goal, screenshotted it, and I saved it as my lock screen and my background screen. Because you'd be surprised at how many times we pick up our phones, we look at the time, we're looking at our phones, we're swiping to open it, we're doing this. And I wanted that to always be at the forefront of my brain, this one little sentence. You know, I think it was like, I will be a six-figure earner here, you know, something like that. And within 7 months, I had earned over $100,000 in that company. Yeah.
Power of affirmation.
Power of affirmation. It's always out there, you know, programming us. We just got to take control.
One of the things that has helped me a lot, and one thing that's really cool, is every time that we think a thought, it usually triggers an emotion, right? When we think a negative thought, it triggers a negative feeling. When we think a positive thought, it triggers a positive feeling. And there's a whole array of spectrum of what kind of negative and what kind of positive. But if we're aware of that, then we can know that if we're feeling negative, chances are, and not chances are, 100%, it's because there was a thought that happened inside of your mind that triggered this negative emotion. So it's hard to be aware of, you know, thousands of thoughts that are happening, but if you can be aware of the way that you feel, then you can know when these thoughts are coming up, and you can know that, hey, if I'm feeling negative, something's going on in my mind that's making me feel negative, I should do something to change it, right? And
that's the key.
You can do a bunch of stuff. You can go for a walk. You can do some affirmations. You can look inside of your mind and start thinking of things that you actually want, but pay attention to the way that you feel, because that's what's happening inside of your mind.
Yeah. Well, it duplicates in our body. You know, I think it's like every hour there's like 8 billion cells that are duplicating in our body. You know, cells are constantly regenerating, and they typically duplicate or regenerate or change or come about as new cells in the same frequency or the same feeling that you had for whatever state you were in for the last hour. So it's like, you know, you think of people that are depressed or they're negative or they're upset or they're angry all the time. They didn't get that way in an instant. They got that way because they held on to that feeling, and as physically as their body's regenerating new cells, 8 billion cells an hour are regenerating and screaming out for more negativity, more depression, more anger. And that's how people slip into these negative states. And it would be, you know, it's easy to say, I know, because I've been there. I've been through the shit before. I've been in the mire. I've felt like things were going to come down on me from every angle. But if you can just understand that if we can just change our thoughts, change our self-talk, it'll change the way we feel. That'll change our state, and our whole world will change because of that.
Yeah, man. And with that awareness, if we know that it's going to compound and it's going to exponentially, if we're thinking negative, it's going to exponentially get worse. Right? If we know that, then let's stop it before it gets to that point, because it's going to be a hell of a lot harder after an entire day of those thoughts than it would that if you woke up in the morning and you had a thought and you changed it right away.
You're absolutely right. And that's what I love with what you guys are doing here on the Young Pro Show. It's just, you know, it's adding value. It's creating awareness. You know, I think in order for the human race as a society, as a community, and I don't say, you know, this race or that race, we're all a part of one race, the great race, the human race. We're all the same as far as I'm concerned. But in order for us to really shift and to move into a better space, a better universe, a better society, it's going to take the awareness that we have to increase in our brains. We have to increase that awareness and that's what you guys are doing. You're spreading positive vibes. You're spreading the awareness that we can all be a little more present. We can all have a little more power, but it starts inside. And that's why I love what you guys are doing so much. Even with Matt's, the Let's Hug It Out. I still have my Let's Hug It Out shirts. The whole family does. Love them.
Thanks, buddy.
I appreciate that, bro.
Yeah.
I want to shift gears a little bit here, Josh. I want you to think of, if you can pass on some information or some wisdom or some insight into some of the youth of today, some of the kids that are maybe going through, their high school final years in high school, or just moving into college and stuff. What would be some things that kind of come to your mind about just stuff they need to know, stuff they need to be aware of? Choices they may need to make, et cetera, about creating the life that they really want to live?
That's a good question. I would say, I'd say the first thing is to always keep an open mind, understanding that, everything that you've been taught, everything that you've learned in, especially public schooling these days, it's only designed to make you fit into this cookie cutter mold of being an employee. They're not teaching you how to think. They're not teaching you how to go and design a life. They're teaching you how to fit in. They're teaching you how to memorize, and they're teaching you how to be an employee. They put the school system, they put the classrooms in straight rows. They make you walk in a single file line. The lockers are in columns. That's not the way this world is anymore. We don't live in so much of a society these days that are based on this job and that job. Gone are the days to where somebody can graduate college and go get $100,000 a year job. Most of my friends that have degrees, I don't. I went to college for a trimester. I tried it out, hated it, and quit. Most of my friends that do have degrees are either underpaid and overworked, or they don't even have a job in the field that they went to get a degree in. So I would say, I'm not saying forget everything you've learned and throw that out. I would say be very intentional about creating new experiences, because the new experiences are what's going to give you the self-education that it takes to design a life that you deserve. And I could say that to anybody, because everybody deserves to have a magnificent, beautiful life. Everybody deserves that. Everybody wants that. I talk to a lot of people, and especially in this industry, and they say, well, I just want to get a good job and do this and buy a house and be debt free. And, I don't need much. Well, I'm going to tell you something. If you don't need much, you won't need to become much. You got to expand your horizons, go and mess up, fail over and over and keep failing, because nobody ever gained anything of worth without experiencing or experimenting a little bit. And that the moment that you graduate high school, the moment that you're in college, the moment that you're in your early 20s, late teens, early 20s, that's the time to do it. Yeah. You can gain so much experience, and I'm fortunate, because from the time I was 18 to 21, I had about 50 jobs. And I know this because when I applied to be a police officer, they say you got to write down every job you've had for the last 10 years. And they gave like 6 little slots for it. And I had to download and add like 3 extra pages just of that form alone to write out my job history, And when I got into, police work, I was there for several years. And at the same time, I was trying to do this kickboxing thing and talking to people. And then I got into network marketing, and all of these experiences, all of these mess ups, getting fired, going to living in a camper when I first got married, those kind of things, having kids way too young, and then going and being a police officer, and then losing this job and losing that job and failing at this. Those gave me the experiences that really gave me the knowledge that helped me move forward in life. I mean, I can tell you, if I can do it, anybody can. But those few years were so impactful for me, because I had the opportunity to fail and try and experiment and go do different things. And to me, that's worth more than any college education could ever give you.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I like what you said about the words designing a life, because that doesn't ever really get talked about. We spend time designing our vacation, yet no one really ever spends any time really designing their life. What do you want your life to look like? And it doesn't need to be just monetary goals and thing goals. It's what kind of experiences do you want to have? What kind of happiness and joy and freedom, and what are the exciting things that you want to do for yourself, and where do you want to go? What parts of the world do you want to explore? All those things are often very left out of any conversation. Parents aren't saying those words to their kids. They're saying, what do you want to do with your life? But they're talking about, what fucking job do you want?
Yeah.
Right? What profession are you looking into? Instead, that question really needs to be, it needs to be a vast question, right? What do you want to do with your life, or what do you want to be in your life? It is one side, but also, what do you want to have? What do you want to experience? What kind of feelings do you want? Where do you want to live? Who do you want to be around? Who do you want to meet? What kind of example do you want to be for the world? What problems do you want to solve? Like, all those kinds of things that are so much more valuable than what do you want to do, that just gets their creative juices flowing. And if people will take the time to actually design their life, that design is going to change probably year after year. Because as you grow, your wants, desires, needs, et cetera, are going to change too. So you'll get to redesign it, but you'll look forward to every year designing your life. And you'll look forward to seeing, wow, my design from 2004, I've achieved everything there. I need to redo something. I need to redesign my life for the future. But holy shit, I did all those things I designed back in the day. Right?
Yeah, no.
Every one of those things is gone. Now I get to go design this whole new life for myself.
Yeah, and I love what you talked about with experiences, and that's why, again, I love what you guys are doing with this. I love this movement, of creating this awareness, because people aren't talking about that in schools. More people are saying, like you said, what do you want to be when you grow up? Not who do you want to be, because that's the key. You're going to be someone. Who do you want to be? We got to design our life, because, and this is something that hit me really hard. Back at the first of the year, New Year's, when my oldest daughter turned 8, and she's, her name's Peyton. She's beautiful, absolutely incredible. But, our life is oftentimes, we talk about how much time do we have? It's all run by time. We're in this, time is the most valuable thing. Well, no, it's not. I mean, time, honestly, time's an illusion, because if I were to go and ask a dog or an oak tree, hey, what time is it? If they could talk, they'd say, time? What do you mean time? It's right now. That's what it is. It's right now. and so I think that if we could really understand that time is an illusion unless we measure time by experiences. That's what time is measured by, because I think about it, Peyton's 8 now. I don't have 10 more years with her. I have 10 more Christmases. Before she gets out of the house. I have 10 more birthdays to celebrate with my girl, not so much about all these years, and I'll do it next year, I'll do it then, or I'm going to wait in a couple years, we're going to do this, or we're saving up for that vacation in a couple years. A couple years is going to be here, but think of the experiences we can create for ourselves right now to design the best couple years we can.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about for me. Yeah. I love what you said there.
Yeah, man. That energy though.
I get fired up, bro.
Yeah, bro, I feel that. It's funny, man, because when we're kids, that's all that we do, right? We're always in our imagination. We're always designing. We're always saying, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? And this kind of fades away. But let's go back to what it was when we were kids. Let's go back to dreaming, back to imagining, back to envisioning and designing the kind of life that we want. Because that's what's going to give us the thrill of this everyday experience, which we're supposed to be able to have every single day. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be exhilarating. It's
yes, sir.
To be awesome. Let's just live it.
That's it.
Kids are so fucking curious.
Yeah, man.
Where's the curiosity, right? Where's the curiosity in most people today? It's gone.
Well, it's because we've been brainwashed and programmed with stupid ass sayings that says curiosity killed the cat.
Yeah.
Money doesn't grow on trees.
Yeah.
Right. I tell you, and I'm grateful. I'm fortunate to obviously have met you, Matt, because I having the introduction to this lifestyle, to this, this new awareness, this new presence, and this new mindset, and being able to design your life and stuff, it's made me a better dad. Now I can honestly say my kids have never heard me say anything like that. They don't hear me say money doesn't grow on trees or curiosity killed the cat, or,
What do you think? I'm made of money?
Yeah. They'll never hear us say that. It's funny. If they say the word that in our house, it's the C word, can't. If you say can't, and they're always telling on each other if they accidentally slip up and say, if you say can't in my house, you got to do push-ups. Yes. So Peyton's 8, so she has to drop and give me 8 push-ups. Lexi's 7, she does 7 push-ups. And if they say can't over something, even something silly at the grocery store, they'll drop down on the floor and do push-ups right there at the grocery store. But because I want them to understand there's nothing they can't do. Now, there's some things that we might not have the ability to right now, right? It's just like my mentor told me in the very beginning when I was talking about money and how it was so expensive. It's so expensive. It's so expensive. Nothing's expensive. There's just some stuff that you broke ass can't afford right now, And I want my kids to understand that and to learn that. And it's funny because now when they bring kids over, we're out at little outings and stuff. They'll even tell on their kids, their friends. They'll tell on their friends, other kids. He said the C word.
Get down and give me 8.
Give me 8. How old are you?
Yeah. That's a good habit to instill in your children, man. Getting that belief system changed, right? That's a reprogramming action that you're taking right there.
Yeah.
Getting them aware of that word, teaching them to associate not negativity necessarily with it, but limitation with it, right?
Yeah.
Associate the limitation that word puts into play, and getting them to reframe around it and understand that just because it's not there right this second doesn't mean you can't become a different person and find different avenues to learn about the thing you need to learn about and find different ways to make the money you need to make in order to get the thing that you're looking to get.
That's it. You if you don't have the resources right now, you better be resourceful. Okay. Yes. I remember before I even started making money, I felt like I was rich. I felt like I was a wealthy man, and it really does start there. And I remember, when my kids were younger and everything, some of the neighborhood friends or whatever, they would ask what I did and what does your dad do for a living or how much your dad make. And the girls have always said, we have all the money in the world. We have unlimited money. We have all the money. How much money is our bank account, Daddy? Unlimited money? I say, yes, absolutely. Because the money's out there. It's going to come from people as long as we become a valuable enough person to deserve it and attract it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
That's a cool reframe too, man. Unlimited money. It's true. There is unlimited money. It's just you might just not have it all right now.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Josh, we're coming up to the hour mark right now on the show.
Man, this has been a blast.
Yeah, right? It's crazy how fast time passes by when we're having these conversations.
That's it.
Are there any closing thoughts that you want to leave with the viewers right now?
No, I appreciate this. It's been an honor to share the stage with you guys today and be on this radio show. I'm excited. You know what I would do to the viewers? Fall in love with growing yourself. Be intentional about gaining more value. If you're on these podcasts or these shows or whatnot, whatever you call them, the radio shows, if there's something that sticks out to you, I don't go anywhere without having a journal handy. I mean, my beautiful girlfriend Sammy keeps an extra journal in her purse with an extra pen, so that I'm always taking notes. If there's something that sticks out to you on these shows or anything in life that's just beautiful for you or helps you have a good feeling or maybe just something tiny that starts to spark a change in your state for the positive, write it down, capture it, fall in love with that intentional growth. Listen to these things over and over and over. Really fall in love with it. Take advantage of it because there's so many people out there that aren't aware that this powwow went on today. There's a lot of people that aren't aware. So I would say share it, be diligent about promoting it, brand what you want out of life. Brand what you want, and then you'll get what you deserve. I promise you that. So
incredible.
Yeah.
Well, Josh, thank you so much, brother, for coming on the show today and just sharing a bunch of value. It's a blast having a conversation with you. And I know that I'm fired up for the rest of my day after the show that we just had.
Me too, bro. Thank you, guys. Much love. Matt, you're the man. Appreciate you guys.
Josh, love you, pal.
Guys, thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Young Pro Show. Remember to subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, go to theyoungproshub.com, and stay tuned for the next episode.